The last mistake of the Roman Empire was not made on a battlefield. It was made in counting rooms, in ledgers stained with ink and blood, in promises borrowed from the future, promises that could never be repaid. By the time the swords fell silent, the empire was already bankrupt, and history remembers what follows. We'll explain everything in this video step by step. Don't skip it. The empire still looks strong from a distance. Standards rise in the wind. Armor catches the sun. Messengers ride fast, carrying orders written with confidence. From the outside, nothing appears broken. But beneath the sound of marching boots, another rhythm is beating, slower, heavier, the sound of accounts being tallied, of obligations stacking higher than walls, of a state spending more than it can ever reclaim. In the counting houses, lamps burn late into the night. Hands move across tablets and parchment. Numbers do not cheer, they do not feel pride, they only accumulate. Each legion stationed at the frontier carries a cost that never sleeps. Pay for soldiers, grain for horses, repairs for roads cracked by time and weight, ships to move men who may never return. Victory demands more funding than defeat ever did. A soldier tightens his worn straps before dawn. His pay is late again. He fights anyway. Not for banners, for bread, for the promise that his family might survive another winter. Behind him, a farmer watches tax collectors measure grain with practiced indifference. The harvest is smaller this year. The demand is not. The empire needs feeding. The war never ends. Coins change without announcement. The stamp is familiar. The face of power still pressed into metal. But the weight is wrong. Merchants notice first, then bakers, then mothers counting what remains at the bottom of the sack. Prices rise in whispers. Wages do not. Savings lose meaning. No enemy crosses the border, yet something is being taken every day. In distant halls, officials speak of necessity, of security, of threats just beyond the horizon. They sign agreements they hope no one will ever read, loans secured against futures that have not yet lived, promises made in calm voices while hands tremble beneath the table. Each signature buys time, each one shortens tomorrow. The army grows larger. The treasury grows thinner. Generals ask for reinforcements and receive instructions to economize. Battles are postponed, garrisons understaffed, borders stretched not by ambition, but by desperation. Decisions once guided by strategy are now filtered through scarcity. Which city can be abandoned? Which ally can wait? Which lives are affordable? In the streets, crowds sense the shift before they understand it. Work grows harder, food grows scarce, anger has no target, only weight. Veterans return with empty purses and unfamiliar silence. Children learn early that the future is uncertain. The empire still speaks of greatness, but the people feel fatigue in their bones. No trumpet announces financial collapse. There's no single moment of realization, only accumulation. The slow suffocation of choice. The realization that strength costs more than strength can produce. That power, once built on surplus, now survives on extraction. That every solution requires another sacrifice from those with the least to give. Walls still stand, armies still march, but loyalty begins to shift, from empire to household, from ideals to survival. Soldiers accept land instead of coin. Officials trade authority for stability. Short-term relief becomes the only language spoken. The future narrows quietly, one compromise at a time. And somewhere between the clink of lighter coins and the silence of unpaid wages, the truth settles in, not as a declaration, as a feeling that the empire is no longer fighting to win, it is fighting to stay solvent, that the greatest threat is not an invading force, but the weight of its own spending pressing down on every life beneath it. Tightening slowly without mercy, the war does not begin with fire, it begins with confidence, with leaders standing before maps convinced this campaign will be short, that the cost will be manageable, that victory will pay for itself. The first orders are signed easily. Funds are released without hesitation. The treasury opens its doors because it believes it will soon be replenished. At first, no one feels the weight. Markets stay full. Wages arrive on time. Soldiers march with steady steps, unaware that every mile forward adds a silent number to a growing column no one reads aloud. The war feels distant, almost clean, a problem for generals and borders, not for kitchens and homes. But war is never contained where it begins. Months pass, then years. The war does not end, it expands. More troops are needed, more supply lines, more ships, more armor, more grain. The cost multiplies quietly, like shadows stretching at dusk. The treasury begins to thin, not enough to alarm, but enough to require adjustments. Small ones, invisible ones. A delayed payment here, a reduced ration there, a tax raised by a fraction no one thinks to question. The war still sounds heroic in public speeches, but behind closed doors the language changes. Words like temporary and necessary replace certainty. Account books grow thicker, faces grow older. A soldier stands watch on a frozen frontier. His boots are cracked, his cloak is thinner than promised. He was told reinforcements would come, they never did. He does not know the war is now being fought on balance sheets. He only knows the cold lasts longer each night. Back home, a craftsman counts fewer customers. People repair instead of replace. Coins linger longer in pockets. A mother stretches soup with water in silence. She does not blame the war. Not yet. She only feels that something is tightening around daily life. Slowly. Without explanation. The debt grows before fear does. Governments borrow quietly, assuring themselves this is the final push. That one more loan will bring resolution. That future prosperity will erase present obligations. Foreign lenders smile and wait. Interest compounds. Promises stack on promises. No banners mark this stage, only ink. Inflation arrives without ceremony. Bread costs more today than yesterday, not enough to protest, enough to notice. Workers ask for raises and are told to be patient. Patience becomes policy. Savings lose strength. Wages fall behind. The war is still far away, but its fingerprints are everywhere. A factory works through the night. Overtime becomes normal. Exhaustion becomes routine. The war demands output, and output demands sacrifice. There is pride in contributing. Then there is fatigue. Then there is quiet resentment when the numbers stop adding up at the end of the week. The state reassures its people. The war is under control. Progress is being made. Victory is approaching. But the debt keeps moving faster than the front lines. Each step forward on the battlefield requires 2 steps deeper into obligation. Strategic choices begin to bend, not toward what is right, but toward what is affordable. Plans shrink. Objectives narrow. Decisions once driven by principle are filtered through cost. Which operation can be postponed? Which ally can be neglected? Which loss can be tolerated? The war has not yet been lost, but something else has. Trust erodes quietly when the promises of stability no longer match lived experience, when effort increases and reward shrinks, when sacrifice feels endless and resolution feels distant. The debt remains invisible to most, but its consequences are intimate, felt in tired hands, in empty shelves, in conversations cut short by worry. By the time fear finally surfaces, the damage is already embedded. The war has woven itself into the economy, into labor, into survival itself. Ending it no longer means relief. It means reckoning. The realization that the true cost was never delayed. It was simply deferred, spreading outward, seeping into every corner of life, waiting for the moment when it could no longer be ignored. The change is so small at first that no one names it. A coin slides across a counter. Familiar weight, familiar sound. The baker accepts it without a glance. Life continues. The war feels distant. The state insists everything is stable. But somewhere between mint and market, value has shifted. Quietly, deliberately. Inflation does not arrive with alarms. It arrives like fog. A mother notices the loaf is thinner, not smaller enough to complain, just lighter in the hand. She adjusts dinner without comment, a little more water in the soup, a little less meat. She tells herself prices always fluctuate, that tomorrow will balance today. Tomorrow costs more, wages stay the same, hours grow longer, the math stops working, but no one can say when it broke. Savings lose strength without making a sound. Coins sit in boxes and jars, still shining, still counted, still trusted, yet worth less each week they remain untouched. No decree announces this loss. No enemy claims responsibility. Inflation wears no uniform. It moves through kitchens and workshops, through markets and pay lines. It touches everyone differently, but spares no one, especially those with nothing left to absorb the blow. A laborer counts his pay at the end of the week. The numbers are correct. The feeling is not. He buys less than he did before. He walks home slower, carrying the same coins and more doubt. He wonders if he worked less or if the work itself has been quietly discounted. The war demands funding. The state demands flexibility. So money is stretched, not visibly, not honestly. The currency remains legal, official, trusted by law, but its power thins like worn fabric pulled too many times. Merchants raise prices to survive. They are blamed for greed. They are surviving the same erosion. Every link in the chain compensates for loss by passing it forward, until the final weight lands where it always does, on families. Rations tighten, choices narrow, shoes are repaired again instead of replaced. Children grow into clothes meant to last another year. Pride is swallowed daily, not in grand gestures but in silence, in the things not said at the table. Inflation turns patience into policy. Workers are told to endure, to understand the necessity, to trust the process. But necessity does not negotiate, and trust cannot be eaten. The cruelest part is how evenly it appears to fall. Everyone pays more, but not everyone pays the same. Those with assets adjust. Those with influence protect themselves. Those living day to day absorb the shock in full. A widow sells a keepsake to buy grain. A veteran trades his metal for firewood. These are not protests. These are transactions. Invisible acts of surrender made without witnesses. The state speaks of stability, of resilience, of shared sacrifice. Yet inflation is not shared equally. It is a silent tax that asks nothing of the powerful and everything of the fragile. Time stretches. Prices keep climbing. Anxiety settles into routine. People stop planning beyond the next week, then beyond the next day. The future becomes too expensive to imagine. Markets still open, coins still circulate, life continues in form, if not in spirit. The war remains distant, but its cost sits at every table, measured not in numbers but in portions. And as the value of money fades, something else fades with it. Confidence, trust, the sense that effort leads somewhere, the belief that survival today will mean security tomorrow. Inflation does not collapse a society overnight. It hollows it, slowly, patiently, until people no longer ask why things cost more. They only ask what they can afford to lose next. The coin still bears the same face, the same symbols, the same promise stamped into metal. To the eye, nothing has changed, but weight tells the truth. A merchant lifts the coin between his fingers and pauses just a moment longer than he used to. He has handled thousands like it. He knows when something feels wrong. The metal is thinner now, slightly, almost politely, enough to doubt his own suspicion. He accepts it anyway, because the state says it is worth the same, because refusal invites trouble, because everyone else will take it too. This is how debasement begins, not as theft, as permission. In the mint, furnaces burn day and night. Silver is mixed with cheaper metal, gold is stretched, the difference is measured carefully, not enough to alarm, just enough to extend supply. Officials sign off with steady hands, they are buying time, they tell themselves it is temporary. Outside, the coins flow into markets unchanged in appearance, altered in reality. At first, no one notices, or no one wants to. Life is already heavy, war already demands sacrifice. Questioning money feels abstract when bread still appears on the table, when wages still arrive, when the empire insists stability remains intact, but metal remembers. Prices begin to shift. Slowly, merchants adjust not out of greed but survival. They pay more for goods because suppliers now demand more coins for the same value. The circle tightens quietly. No announcement explains it. No enemy claims responsibility. The baker raises prices by a fraction. He apologizes. The customer nods. Next week, the fraction grows. The apology disappears. A soldier returns home with a pouch of pay earned through months of danger. He places it on the table with pride. His family smiles, then grows quiet as they begin to spend it. The money runs out sooner than expected. The battles were real. The reward feels lighter. Debasement steals without confrontation. It keeps the illusion of normalcy alive while hollowing it from within. The empire continues to pay its debts on paper, continues to fund armies, continues to function. But each coin carries less promise than the last. Trust erodes not in speeches but in transactions. Merchants begin weighing coins instead of counting them. Older habits return. Suspicion spreads. People talk in low voices about which currency is still good, which coins are worth keeping, which must be spent quickly before they lose more value. Hoarding begins, not out of greed, out of fear. The state insists the money is sound, that the face stamped upon it guarantees its worth. Laws are passed against refusal, against private exchange, against speaking openly about decline. Stability is enforced, but belief cannot be legislated. Debasement creates two worlds at once, one where money exists in abundance and another where value is scarce. Wages rise in number but fall in meaning. Prices climb in response. Those closest to power adjust first. Those farthest away absorb the shock. A laborer is paid more coins than before. He feels hopeful for a moment. Then he visits the market. Hope dissolves at the counter. He realizes he has been paid in appearance, not substance. The war continues to demand funding. The state continues to supply it with altered money. Each cycle pushes the truth further from sight. Each solution deepens dependence on illusion. Eventually, people stop trusting what they hold. They trade quickly. They consume immediately. Saving becomes pointless. Planning becomes dangerous. The future cannot be stored in debased metal, and still the coins look the same. That is the most dangerous part. Nothing appears broken until everyone feels it is. The battle plan is perfect on parchment. Lines are drawn with confidence. Arrows sweep across terrain as if resistance were theoretical. Generals speak of timing, positioning, decisive force. But beneath the map, beneath the language of honor and courage, another document waits. Smaller, quieter, a ledger, because no army moves without money. A commander stands alone before dawn. He studies the horizon, then the figures delivered hours earlier. Supplies are lower than reported. Pay has not arrived. Reinforcements exist only in theory. The plan must change. Not because the enemy is strong, but because the treasury is thin. Orders are rewritten. An attack delayed, a flank left exposed, a siege shortened before hunger forces retreat. These are not failures of nerve. They are calculations. Lives measured against cost. Time weighed against funding. A soldier feels it before he understands it. His rations are smaller. His boots are worn past repair. Promises of rotation fade into silence. He fights anyway. Not because the plan is sound, but because stopping is not an option. Survival replaces strategy at ground level. Behind the lines, supply officers argue over numbers. How many days of grain remain? How much ammunition can be spared? Which units receive priority? Choices are made with cold urgency. Someone will go without. Someone always does. The enemy senses it. Not through intelligence reports, but through behavior. Hesitation where there should be pressure. Withdrawal where there should be pursuit. The rhythm of war changes when resources tighten. Momentum is no longer seized. It is rationed. In the capital, leaders speak of resolve, of commitment, of necessary sacrifice. They approve budgets that look sufficient from a distance. They assume commanders will adapt, that soldiers will endure, that the war can be managed like an equation. But war is lived in moments. A cavalry charge canceled because horses are starving. A fortified town bypassed because siege engines are too costly to move. A risky engagement avoided because casualties require compensation the state cannot afford. Each decision seems small. Each one leaves a mark. Alliances begin to shift, not toward loyalty but affordability. Mercenaries are hired because they are cheaper today, even if they cost more tomorrow. Local militias are armed instead of trained legions. Quality is traded for quantity, reliability for immediacy. A veteran watches unfamiliar faces take positions beside him. They do not share language or oath, they share payment. He wonders how long that bond will last when the money falters. Commanders begin fighting defensively, not because it is wise, but because offense is expensive. Holding ground costs less than taking it. Initiative is surrendered to preserve resources. The war slows, drags, bleeds into time, and time is the most expensive resource of all. Casualties rise not from defeat, but from indecision, from prolonged exposure, from campaigns extended beyond endurance. The cost climbs higher than the attack ever would have, but now retreat is impossible. Too much has already been spent. A general signs an order knowing it will fail, not tactically, economically, but alternatives no longer exist. He sends men forward with insufficient support because waiting costs more than losing them. The soldiers do not know this. They advance into uncertainty, believing their sacrifice serves a greater design. They do not see the columns of numbers that decided their fate. They only feel the absence of support when it matters most. War becomes a negotiation between ambition and affordability, between what must be done and what can be paid for. The battlefield reflects the budget with brutal honesty. And somewhere between strategy and survival, the war stops being fought to win. It is fought to sustain itself. The war is announced far away. Trumpets sound in capitals. Declarations are made with firm voices. Maps are displayed. Borders highlighted. The language is grand, purposeful. But in small homes, nothing changes that day. Meals are cooked. Work continues. Children sleep. The war feels like something happening to someone else. That illusion does not last. The first weight arrives quietly. A new tax, a longer workday, a notice posted where notices always are. It is explained as temporary, necessary, a contribution to something larger. People comply. They always do at first. A farmer wakes before sunrise. He tills land that no longer fully belongs to him. Part of his harvest is already spoken for. Not by weather, not by fate, by demand. The state needs grain, the army needs feeding. He gives because refusal is not an option. In cities, factories run longer hours. Hands blister, lungs fill with dust. Wages arrive late, then smaller, then worth less each time they are counted. Workers do not complain loudly. Loud complaints attract attention. Attention brings consequences. The war advances. So does hunger. A mother stands in line with a ration card folded thin from use. She calculates silently. Not numbers, days. How long this will last. Which meal can be reduced. Which child needs more. These are not choices she should make, but she makes them anyway. No one records this as sacrifice. There are no medals for endurance. The soldier at the front is visible. His suffering is honored. His absence is noted. But the civilians remain unseen, absorbing the cost daily. They surrender comfort first, then security, then hope, piece by piece. Inflation follows scarcity like a shadow. Prices rise, not dramatically, gradually, enough to force adjustment, enough to require compromise, enough to make the future feel unstable. The poor feel it immediately. The middle class follows. Those with power notice last. A tailor closes his shop early. Fewer customers come. Fewer can afford repairs. He sells tools one by one to keep food on the table. When the last tool is gone, he becomes labor. When labor is no longer needed, he becomes invisible. Children leave school to work. Not because education is unvalued, but because survival is urgent. Dreams shrink, horizons narrow. The war reshapes lives that never chose it. In the evenings, families gather in dim rooms. News arrives in fragments, victories announced, losses softened. The truth is always delayed. They listen anyway. They need to believe the cost means something, but belief does not fill stomachs. Civilians trade favors instead of money. They barter time, skill, silence. Communities hold together because separation is too expensive. Everyone knows someone who has disappeared. To the front, to hunger, to exhaustion. Names fade from conversation out of respect or fear. The state praises resilience, calls it strength. But resilience is just endurance renamed. It does not make the burden lighter, it only makes it longer. When shortages worsen, blame moves downward. Merchants accused, workers suspected, neighbors watched. The war fractures trust at home even as it demands unity abroad. Fear grows inward, not outward. Still, the people carry on. They repair what should be replaced. They eat less. They expect nothing. The war has entered their bodies, their routines, their silence. It no longer needs announcements. Civilians do not fight battles. They absorb consequences. They are the ones who pay first and longest. The letters arrive in silence. Sealed, stamped, urgent, promises written in careful hand. They speak of help, of resources, of survival. The empire has asked and the world has answered. But there is a price. There is always a price. In shadowed chambers, officials read the agreements. Their hands are steady. Their faces betray nothing. One signature unlocks silver. Another opens ships. The treasury breathes again. But every promise is borrowed from a future that may never exist. Every coin is a debt waiting to be repaid. Outside, life continues unaware. Markets bustle, soldiers drill, children chase one another across dirt streets. The war seems far, yet behind every transaction, every raised hand, every delivery of grain, the weight of obligation presses invisible but real. Loans arrive with conditions. Allies demand assurances. Interest accumulates like frost on window panes, quiet at first, almost beautiful until it hardens and cracks. The empire nods and signs. It must. There is no other path. Survival is urgent. Repayment is later. The people do not know. They feel the effects first. Coins appear in their hands that are not fully their own. Bread is bought with borrowed silver. Rations are stretched using money that exists only because another nation has agreed it can. The world has lent life to the war, but life is never free. A soldier waits for pay. The army marches regardless. Weapons are sharpened. Horses fed, but every coin handed over has already been promised elsewhere. Each bill carries a ghost weight, a claim that will demand recognition when the war ends or before. Merchants adjust prices to anticipate future costs. Families sense uncertainty in the tone of shopkeepers. They tighten belts, stretch meals, avoid expense. Survival becomes a negotiation with unseen hands. Every act of endurance is measured, calculated, borrowed from a tomorrow that is already claimed. In distant halls, advisors whisper of loyalty and risk. Lending nations remind the empire of obligations, of treaties, of consequences. Nothing is free, nothing is forgotten. Decisions made in urgency today can become chains tomorrow. Each contract creates another link in a growing web of dependence. Farmers watch tax collectors measure grain. The measures are the same, but the value has shifted. They pay the same for less, and the empire owes the difference elsewhere. The debt hides in plain sight, folded into every ration, every payment, every march. The generals plan campaigns knowing some victories are financed, not earned. The enemy may retreat, the army may advance, yet the real pressure is not on the battlefield. It is in the ledgers, in the promises made in distant chambers. Victory can be purchased, but at a cost invisible to those who fight and die for it. Hunger arrives quietly, disguised as policy. Patience is demanded. Sacrifice is justified. Children learn to measure portions while others talk of triumph. Families stretch, barter, exchange. Survival becomes a currency more vital than coin. Every day is paid for in labor, endurance, and silent fear. And as the empire leans further on borrowed strength, the future narrows. Each decision is filtered through the lens of debt. Who will receive food? Who will receive pay? Who can wait? Choices once made for strategy are now dictated by obligation. The war is no longer just fought on fields, but in the quiet corners of trust and credit, where promises weigh heavier than swords. The letters arrive again. Another request, another loan, another contract written in ink, signed in hope. The empire takes it. It must. Survival comes at a cost no one yet fully feels, and the burden will not wait until the end of the war to arrive. The doors close quietly. Officials enter the room. The walls are lined with ledgers. Candles flicker. Shadows stretch across faces tense with knowledge. The papers are stacked high. Numbers written in neat columns in careful ink tell a story no one outside these walls can read, a story of strain, of compromise, of survival. Outside, life goes on. Children play in courtyards. Markets hum with exchange. Soldiers drill at dawn. The empire appears stable, proud, invincible. But in this room, the air is heavy. Every calculation hints at limits already breached. Every decision carries weight no one is allowed to speak aloud. The treasury is not empty, yet it is hollow. Resources exist, but are claimed elsewhere. Debts sit invisible in the corners like a quiet frost that creeps across floors without notice. Each coin spent, each supply shipped is already promised. Every action hides consequence. A general calls for reinforcements. The order arrives. Supplies are insufficient. Pay is delayed. He adjusts. He improvises. He hopes. Each plan is filtered through scarcity. Strategy bends to arithmetic. Every battlefield choice carries a financial echo. Victory is never just tactical. It is economic. In towns and villages, people notice subtle changes. Bread is lighter. Taxes come due with sharper precision. Rations are reduced. Officials explain necessity. Citizens comply. They do not yet realize that the cost they carry is a reflection of decisions they cannot see, decisions made in secret rooms with locked doors. Inflation creeps in quietly. Coins lose weight, value, meaning. Merchants pass it on. Bakers stretch bread. Mothers stretch meals. Families measure survival in silence. It feels slow at first, almost imperceptible, until suddenly every table, every pocket, every ledger feels the loss. Letters arrive from allies. Promises of aid, of support. Conditions are written in dense script. The empire accepts. Survival demands it. Each promise borrowed from tomorrow adds weight to the present. Decisions made behind closed doors ripple outward. No one sees them until they feel them in empty shelves and unpaid wages. Soldiers march with courage, unaware that some of their victories are paid for with borrowed faith. The people back home endure quietly, absorbing burdens without acknowledgement. Each ration, each wage, each favor owed is a silent testimony to choices made far from view. Trust erodes slowly. Citizens begin to notice gaps. The promises made in corridors of power do not match the reality of daily life. Yet questioning brings risk. The visible world remains orderly. The empire speaks of stability, progress, resilience. The hidden world carries tension, uncertainty, fear. Generals fight with fewer resources. Officials stretch supply lines. Decisions once made for principle are now dictated by obligation. Choices are rationed. Sacrifices assigned. Some live better than others, not through valor, but through proximity to knowledge, to power, to information kept secret. Every move is shadowed by the unseen ledger. Who will receive food? Who will receive pay? Who must wait? Plans are measured not only in miles, in weapons, in manpower, but in debt and promise, in accounting and projection. Each outcome is influenced by the quiet arithmetic of survival. And as days pass, the gap widens between what is told and what is felt. Citizens endure without knowing. Soldiers fight without knowing. The empire functions, yet is fragile. The ledger holds a truth that cannot yet be spoken, but everyone senses its presence, a weight pressing invisibly on every life, every choice, every breath. The decisions remain hidden, invisible to most, but their consequences are intimate. They arrive in hunger, in delay, in fear. In the quiet realization that what sustains the empire is never truly theirs, and what is promised will always demand repayment beyond what anyone can see, the banners still fly. Legions march in formation, shields clatter, spears catch the sun. From a distance, the empire appears invincible. Pride swells in the streets. Citizens cheer. Officials smile. The illusion is perfect, but power cannot outrun arithmetic. In hidden chambers, scribes tally coins. Ledgers creak under weight. Debts accumulate silently, invisibly. Every victory costs more than anticipated. Every campaign demands more than the treasury can provide. Generals are given orders with confidence. Officials nod. The numbers whisper a different story. A soldier tightens his straps before dawn. He has fought battles where courage mattered more than calculation. He does not know that the plan for this campaign has already been compromised by finance. The swords and shields cannot win against a ledger. He fights anyway. At home, a mother counts the coins in a small pouch. She wonders if it will buy enough grain to last the week. The war is distant, heroic, abstract. The cost is immediate, personal. She stretches every morsel. She stretches hope. The empire borrows, again and again. Foreign lenders sign documents with crisp signatures. The officials smile, believing they have found a solution. Every loan buys time, not relief. Every promise transfers risk into the future. The empire grows in appearance while shrinking in substance. Soldiers wait for pay. Horses starve. Weapons rust. Reinforcements are delayed. The front lines are stretched thin. Strategy falters. Victory becomes dependent on survival, not skill. Every decision is filtered through arithmetic. Every march carries a hidden tax. Merchants adjust. Bakers stretch loaves. Farmers pay tribute before feeding families. Civilians absorb the cost quietly, methodically. Their sacrifice is invisible. Their endurance is taken for granted. Every home holds a story of compromise. Every child learns that survival comes before ambition. Generals meet with officials. Maps spread before them. They point to cities, to borders, to enemy positions. They plan, confident. But each decision is weighed against a ledger, a banknote, a line of credit. The cost dictates movement. The plan bends to numbers. Battles are delayed because the treasury cannot keep pace. Allies are neglected because promises exceed capability. Inflation rises quietly. Coins lose value. Prices climb. Wages stagnate. Families feel it before they understand it. The baker raises bread prices fractionally. The mother notices. She shrinks portions, swallows anxiety, hides worry behind polite smiles. Each act is a negotiation with a reality she cannot control. Debt grows faster than hope, borrowed silver, borrowed faith, borrowed time. The empire appears stronger, yet it is hollowing from within. Every loan taken, every promise made accelerates a decay that no army can halt. It is arithmetic, not arrows, that sets the pace. A veteran walks the streets, watching the young take his place. He notices the tension in merchants' eyes, the silence in families, the careful counting of coins. He remembers when strength was enough. Now strength is meaningless without numbers that match it. The battlefield is not the only place to measure courage. Officials speak of resilience, of honor, of destiny. Citizens comply, soldiers endure. But arithmetic does not respect speeches. It does not care for pride. It ignores banners. It measures value, cost, and consequence. And the empire, vast as it appears, can never escape the sums it owes. Each day, the truth grows heavier. Each action, each decision, each sacrifice is weighed against invisible numbers. Power has limits. Ambition has limits. Survival has limits. No sword, no legion, no victory can outrun what cannot be paid. And the ledger waits silently, impartial, relentless, unforgiving. The empire still breathes. Its banners snap in the wind. Soldiers march with discipline. The streets are orderly. From a distance it seems unshakable. Pride radiates from the capital. Confidence echoes in every hall. But inside, something has begun to crack. Sacrifice replaces strategy. A general studies maps by candlelight. The enemy is visible, predictable, contained, yet his orders are constrained not by risk but by resources. Supplies run thin, pay is delayed, horses go unfed, siege engines remain idle because the treasury cannot support their use. He adjusts, he improvises, he hopes. The soldiers follow him anyway. They fight not only against the enemy but against the absence of certainty. Each step forward costs more than the previous. Each victory carries hidden obligations. Every campfire burned consumes what could have been delivered elsewhere. At home, a mother counts coins for bread. The ration has shrunk again. The price has risen. She stretches every morsel. She whispers prayers for safety and endurance. Her children do not complain, but they feel the tightening. Hunger arrives slowly, almost unnoticed until it is absolute. The state borrows. Foreign hands provide silver and promises. The agreements are signed with confident strokes. Officials nod. Debt grows silently. Loans bring temporary relief, but the cost waits patiently in the shadows. The empire appears stronger, but every borrowed coin draws the future nearer, and the future is unforgiving. Merchants adjust. Bakers stretch loaves. Farmers deliver grain before feeding families. Laborers work longer hours. Every civilian carries the weight. They endure quietly. They absorb the cost that no proclamation, no medal, no speech will ever acknowledge. Every action in the city reflects choices made far from sight. The generals meet with the treasury. Maps spread, fingers point, strategies debated. Every plan is filtered through arithmetic. Reinforcements delayed because the funds are not there. Supplies rerouted to preserve priority. Decisions once guided by principle now bend to what can be paid for, not what should be done. Inflation creeps quietly. Coins lose weight, value, meaning. Prices climb imperceptibly. Wages stagnate. Families notice. They count, ration, measure, negotiate survival with a currency that has been quietly altered. Each day adds uncertainty. Each coin carries an echo of promises made elsewhere, debts owed to distant hands. The war continues. Battles rage. Victories are claimed. Yet the cost is invisible. Soldiers die for plans funded by borrowed faith. Civilians suffer for campaigns justified by rhetoric. Every household absorbs consequences silently. Endurance becomes the quiet labor of survival. Hope becomes conditional. Trust erodes. Citizens begin to question quietly. Parents teach children caution before courage. Merchants weigh coins before greeting customers. The veneer of stability remains, but underneath, the calculus of survival dictates every movement, every decision, every breath. Generals fight with fewer resources. Officers improvise. Citizens sacrifice. Strategy has become compromise. Every march, every engagement, every siege reflects not ambition, but affordability. Success is measured not only by conquest, but by who can endure. And in this slow, relentless arithmetic, the empire discovers a truth that banners cannot proclaim. Power cannot outrun responsibility. Strength cannot escape the weight of obligation. Victory counts for little if the cost cannot be sustained. Every triumph is tempered by the ledger, every choice shadowed by what has already been promised, and every life bears the burden of what the empire cannot repay. The streets remain orderly, the banners still fly, the people carry on, but beneath it all, an invisible tension stretches through every home, every field, every battlefield, pressing down, waiting, unrelenting, unacknowledged, and unavoidable.